Thank you, Ori. Okay, guys, now we're going into two of the most important concepts in learning about the Cold War. The Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. The Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan go together like hot dogs and beans, peanut butter and jelly. Ori, come up with one. The Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan come together like?
Beans and rice.
Beans and rice. Adam, the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan go together like?
Apple and grapes.
Apples and grapes.
No.
Jasmine, the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan come together like?
Peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly. I think I already said that one.
Oh,
How about doing homework in college about attitude?
Bread and butter.
Bread and butter! Yes, we're going a little stir crazy here, folks.
I'm not.
Jasmine's not. She just got back from work. So she's been out. I'm sure she'd stay at a good 8 feet from each person at work, though. So here we go, guys. The Truman Doctrine is named after Harry Truman. If you can't stay in the heat, get out of the kitchen. The buck stops here. Adam, I'm going to ask you to stay quiet, buddy. I could hear you. Okay. So, guys, remember the Monroe Doctrine, right? Named after James Monroe. Doctrine is kind of like a rule. Monroe Doctrine. Hey, Europe, stay out of Latin America. We get to take advantage of these people. The Western Hemisphere is the U.S.'s turf. That was the Monroe Doctrine, 1823. The Truman Doctrine, 1947, basically says the United States is going to try to stop the spread of communism, and we'll use the military if we have to. Got it? Write that down for the times 4. The United States will try to stop the spread of communism even if we have to fight. We might not fight the Soviet Union, we might not fight Stalin directly, but we'll fight them indirectly. Oh, what? North Korea communists went into South Korea? We're going to fight. Truman Doctrine. We cannot let them spread. Think of it like a container. You got something, it's called the containment policy. See? U.S. containment policy. What are we trying to contain? We're trying to contain the spread of communism. That's why it's called the containment policy. We're going to keep it in the container. Okay, the Soviet Union already took Eastern Europe. They've got all of Eastern Europe. And one of the big places was Greece. That's when this whole Truman Doctrine started. Stalin was trying to go into Greece, and Truman's like, no, that's it. You're not crossing that line.
Stressful.
Of course it's stressful. I'm talking about the Cold War.
I know, but it's like creating anxiety for us to eat over here. Calm down.
I do it better when you're behind the camera, Jazzy.
Okay, well, I'm eating.
Tomorrow we'll finish this up with you. So here's the deal. Truman Doctrine, we're going to use military to stop the spread of communism. Got it? Put that for the times. And you know, there is a Bush Doctrine. After 9/11, the Bush Doctrine was basically this. If you're helping terrorists or you're hiding terrorists, we can come bomb you and invade you. That was basic Bush Doctrine, guys. Seriously. If you're helping terrorists or you're hiding terrorists, watch out. We reserve the right to come get you. Right? I wonder if that'll be in the history books as the Bush Doctrine. Right? So we got Monroe Doctrine, Europe stay out of Latin America in 1823. Now we've got the Truman Doctrine, 1947. We're going to stop the spread of communism. We're going to contain it. We're going to contain communism from spreading. All right? Let's go on to the Marshall Plan, 1948. Basically, it's like peanut butter and jelly. Truman Doctrine is the military. Marshall Plan is the money plan. So put dollar signs all over the place. Uh-oh, I'm going to have to start using green. That's fine. Hopefully the green is working. It's the money plan. U.S. gives $15 billion. Now, to Eastern Europe or Western Europe? Which one do you think we're going to give the money to? Eastern Europe or Western Europe? Thank you for raising your hand, Becca. Correct. Eastern Europe was already controlled. They were puppet governments by the Soviet Union and Stalin. So we're going to try to help out Western Union. Western Europe. Thank you, Becca. I just heard that, Adam. You said you didn't like mangoes. They can hear you. To recover how? Remember, we just beat Hitler. Hitler's been bombing our cities. Look at England. They were getting bombed every night, having to go down into the subways to hide. Economically. That's why it's called the money plan. Okay? Now, we were not just doing this to be nice. All right? Don't think we were just doing this to be nice. Oh, that's so nice of us. No, we were doing it so that they don't go commie. Got it? Stalin trying to help. Come on. You need our help. No, stay out of there. We're going to give them the money. They're going to be on our side. Western Europe's going to be on our side. $15 billion, which, by the way, is $150 billion now. 150 billion now, okay? So why? For the why I put down so that the Western European countries would not become communist, right? And put down that's 150 billion now. That's the Truman Doctrine. Guys, that's why we fought in Korea and Vietnam, so you should know it. All right? The Marshall Plan and the Truman Doctrine, they go together. I can hear you, Jesse. 2 military alliances. One of them is still around. NATO. North Atlantic Treaty. Thank you, Ori. Organization. All right? Basically, it's going to be the West, quote unquote, versus the East. That's the U.S. and Western Europe. France was in and out of it. They were out of it for a while, then they came back in it, but we'll say France was in it mostly. And let's not forget Canada. Canada is in NATO also. All right? And remember, NATO's still around. It's a military alliance. Remember, you form alliances. I got your back. If anybody attacks you, don't worry. I got your back. Right? So we're in a huge military alliance. We have been since 47, 48, maybe 49. We're in a huge military alliance called NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Soviet Union's pact, Soviet Union's alliance came a little later in the 50s. Think of the famous city in Poland. Thank you for raising your hand. Jackson. Correct. Warsaw, Poland, Warsaw Pact. Because that's where it was signed. The Warsaw Pact. USSR. And Eastern Europe. And it ended, you can guess, 1991 is when the Cold War ended. The Warsaw Pact ended in 1991 when the Soviet Union broke up. Remember, it's not Soviet Union anymore, it's Russia and like 19 other countries. Soviet Union broke up into Russia and 19 other countries around it. 1991. Okay, so those are two famous military alliances. Let me see if I can get the good video on this one. Bada bing. Okay, let's show you this too. Formation of NATO and the Warsaw Pact in history. This is a good one. Up. Wait a second. Okay. Add.
When a new conflict threatened to rock Europe. This time around, it was the Western democracies, like Great Britain and France, and their ally across the pond, the United States, versus the Soviet Union and its communist satellites. These two sides each formed their own security agreements to show they meant business. These were NATO and the Warsaw Pact. After the war, the Soviet Union began to flex its muscles, installing communist governments in Eastern Europe.
Puppet
In
governments.
1948, the USSR toppled a democratic government in Czechoslovakia and then cut off supply routes to West Berlin. The United States and its Western European allies began to get nervous. You see what's going on over there with the Soviets? We don't like that, okay? In April 1949, foreign ministers of a dozen Western European and Northern American nations met in Washington, D.C. to sign the North Atlantic Treaty. This created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. In Article 5 of the treaty, NATO nations agreed that an attack against any, say, the Soviet Union, for example, would be an attack against all of them. Original NATO nations sound off. Belgium, Denmark, Great Britain, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, Canada, and the United States. Greece and Turkey joined in 1952, and West Germany in 1955. It was West Germany that made things a little tense. The U.S. and its allies wanted to let West Germany form its own army, but the USSR wasn't psyched about this. The Soviets warned that if West Germany did raise an army and join NATO, they'd make their own alliance. West Germany did join NATO, so the Soviet Union said, okay, we told you so. In May of 1955, it gathered its communist allies in Eastern Europe and sat them down for a good old treaty signing. That treaty was the Warsaw Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation, and Mutual Assistance, or the Warsaw Pact. They called it the Warsaw Pact because it was signed in, wait for it, Warsaw. Warsaw Pact nations roll call. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Hungary, Albania, East Germany, Bulgaria, and the Soviet Union. In 1968, Albania left the pact as the country became more closely aligned with Communist China. Like NATO, Warsaw Pact member nations were bound to come to each other's defense if attacked by an outside power. It also established a central military command, putting the Soviet Union firmly in charge. The Soviet Union also used the pact to keep its members in line. Popular uprisings in Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and Poland were all squashed by the Soviets.
You guys get that? Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Poland both wanted to stop being puppet governments by the Soviet Union. They were squashed. People did not have the choice. Stalin and the Soviet Union were in your country whether you like it or not. You try to fight back, forget about it. We're going to kill you.
NATO and the Warsaw Pact. These were the players in the Cold War, facing down each other like two wary nuclear-armed gunfighters, each waiting for the other to flinch and knowing that war between them might mean the end of the world. And it would stay that way until 1991. When the Soviet Union disbanded, so too did the Warsaw Pact.
All right. Ori.
Young people in large numbers came out and joined what became known as the Red Guard.
Can you put this back, please? Thank you, sir.
Done?
No, we're not done. So the Berlin blockade and the Berlin airlift. Okay. This is a super important one. This is one of the big conflicts between the Soviet Union and the U.S. and the West. Okay, we got to look at the map to understand this. Germany was divided up. At first it was divided up into four, but then I think of it as two, West Germany and East Germany. East Germany is in red because the Soviet Union is controlling East Germany. During the Olympics, the East Germans always seemed like they were the ones taking steroids and winning gold medals. And then they had to give their gold medals back because it was found out a few years later that they were on steroids. The communist countries were always trying to cheat in the Olympics by taking steroids. And then we started taking steroids too. American, not as many, gotta say it, not as many, but then I guess they felt like, hey, the only way we compete is by taking them too. So just a little side note there. On the left is West Germany. Remember, Germany was divided up. fact, I had a buddy, his name was Mark in high school. Hey, Mark, what are you up to? I'm sitting in a tank all day. What? Yeah, I joined the army, and basically all I do every day, I sit in a tank at the border of West Germany to make sure East Germany doesn't try to attack West Germany. Seriously, you had tanks just lined up on this border to try to make it where the East Germans could not attack. And I'm sure the East Germans and the Soviets had tanks on this side, making sure that the West Germans could not attack. So here's the thing. Berlin was in East Germany. Got it? Here's West Germany. West Berlin, which is the capital of West Germany, is in East Germany. That's like having to go through the bad guy's backyard to get to your house. Look, I had a roommate. He was a West German roommate in the University of Georgia in college. He drank too much, let's face it. Every day he had a bottle of white wine, every single day. One time after drinking a little, he said, the scariest time I ever had is when I would visit my grandmother in West Berlin, and then I would probably drink a little too much, and I had to drive back to West Germany. Remember, this is communism. He's driving through communism now. I had to drive back to my house and my parents in West Germany, hoping I didn't get pulled over for driving drunk, because he knew if he did, they could put him in jail and throw away the key, and maybe his parents would never ever see him again. That's how dangerous it was. So here's what happened as far as the Berlin blockade and the Berlin airlift. Watch this. This is really important. West Germany and the United States, with their backing, was going to start a new currency called the Jess, how do you exactly say the West German currency is the Deutschmark? Yeah. Deutschmark. Yeah, Deutsch. Thank you. The Deutschmark. So they're going to start a new currency in Germany called the Deutschmark. And you're Stalin in the Soviet Union. You're like, what? Yeah, we just want to start our own money. You can't do that. That's good. Think about it. This is where most of the best businesses are, because you got to say it, under Stalin and the Soviet Union, the economy was not as good. So the economy is good over here. And they want to have their own money. So if they start their own money, what do you think the money is going to be worth over here? It's going to go down big time, right? So Stalin was very upset that they were going to start having their own money called the Deutschmark. So what he does, he blockades. Let's put my eraser here. He blockades the highways. I think there were 3 main highways. He blockades the highways so that now West Germany can't get supplies to West Berlin. That's the famous Berlin blockade. So put that for Berlin blockade. Stalin blocks highways so West Germany cannot get supplies to West Berlin. Remember, this is where your grandparents live. She needs her medicine. She needs her food. You can't get it to her. All right? So now what are you going to do? You're Truman. What? Mr. President, Stalin just blockaded the highways. He's upset that we're going to start this new Deutschmarks. What should we do? What are you going to do? Ori! I hear you. He's hiding so that says...
Is it like an airlift thing or like an aircraft something?
Berlin airlift. You got it. Guys, 1,500 airplanes a day for 2 months. Ton after ton of supplies, dropped them down. They dropped them by parachute, and they were actually able to land in the airport here. And they kept on bringing supplies. It's like a chess match. I'm going to blockade. Oh, you're going to blockade? Okay, it's not checkmate. We're going to airlift. We're going to have airplanes going over your blockade and dropping down. Ton after ton after ton. Remember, a ton is 2,000 pounds. Finally, Stalin gives up and opens up the blockade. So Truman won that one. Thank God they didn't try to shoot down any of our planes. And why do you think they didn't try to shoot down any of our planes? Mr. Let me see. I'm going to call on Cam. Exactly. Because they knew, good Cam, that if they shot down one of our planes, that we might nuke them. We don't want to have direct conflict because we both have nuclear bombs. We do not want to be in a nuclear war because World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Okay? They're whispering over there. I'm not going to be paranoid. Okay, great video of the Berlin blockade and Berlin airlift. Here we go.
One of the first major incidents during the Cold War became known as the Berlin airlift. What?
Oh no. Oh no. Commercial. Okay.
Was the Berlin airlift, and why was it carried out? At the conclusion of World War II, Germany was divided into 4 portions. The United States, Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union each controlled one segment. The city of Berlin...
See guys, Berlin is in the red. Berlin is where the Soviets are in control of. So important, okay? Grandma and Grandpa live in the enemy's territory. We got to travel here, through here to get to see them.
which was located in the Soviet sector, was also split into 4 similar segments. The Americans, British, and French portions joined together to create West Berlin, while the Soviet region was known as East Berlin. In 1948, the American, British, and French regions of Germany announced that they would be creating and using a new currency called the Deutschmark.
Deutschmark.
This would replace the old German currency known as the Reichsmark. In response to this decision, the Soviet Union halted all traffic between East Berlin and West Berlin. They also severed all communications with the non-Soviet sectors.
And I think they turned off the electricity.
Supply trains were turned around, and even the electricity was cut from West Berlin. Since Berlin was located 100 miles inside the
That's like from
Soviet
here to
sector,
New York City, guys.
this meant that the non-Soviet region of Berlin was completely isolated and in a hostile territory. At the time, this region of Berlin had enough food to last about 36 days and only 45 days worth of coal. By June 24th, 1948, West Berlin was completely cut off from the rest of the world and surrounded by 2.5 million Soviet troops. On June 25th, the U.S., Great Britain, and other allied nations decided on a response. It became known as the Berlin airlift. The Allies began flying planes into West Berlin, each one carrying loads of supplies, including food, coal, and other necessities. At first, progress was slow, but before long, fresh supplies were flowing into West Berlin by the minute. The Soviets were helpless to stop these flights. If they had opened fire on the aircraft, it would have been considered an act of war. So the planes were allowed to land.
You see that, guys?
Supplying West Berliners
Every
with
1 to
essential
3 minutes, a
items
plane went down.
that they needed.
A plane landed.
By April of 1949, the Soviets realized that their blockade effort was futile. And finally, on May the 12th, 1949, the Soviet blockade of Berlin came to an end. Even after the blockade was lifted, the Berlin airlift continued for several months, lasting a total of 15, with countless planes landing.
These are
in
candy
Berlin.
bars, too.
At the airlift's conclusion, the American and British Air Forces had combined to supply the city with over 2 million tons of supplies.
2 million tons.
There were 101 deaths caused by crashes during the airlift, and these deaths